The Ag Tribes Report is brought to you by Legacy Interviews, a video service that captures people as they really are, so the future knows who they really were. Here's Legacy Interviews guest Laurie Alt on the joy she experienced looking back on her life as a farm wife and mother.
My career was raising my children, being a wife to Steve, helping on the farm, and I'm so glad for doing all that. Having this interview with you helps us see those good things that we have done, how happy I was in all those choices that I make. We can say that and put it in this interview to pass it on to our children and our grandchildren and great-grandchildren someday. So I think you have a great gift to give people.
Welcome to the Ag Tribes Report, a breakdown of the top stories affecting the culture of agriculture, with your host, Vance Crowe. The report begins in 3, 2, 1. Let's begin.
Welcome to the Ag Tribes Report. I'm your host, Vance Crowe. Each week, I bring on a co-host to represent the perspectives of one of the many ag tribes that collectively make up U.S. and Canadian agriculture. This week, we have our first returning co-host, Zack Smith, who goes by Zebulus Prime on X. Zack is a farmer revolutionizing agriculture with his innovative stock cropper system. A passionate leftist, this week's commie advocates for cover crops and sustainable farming. He recently began a weekly video program on X discussing different areas of agriculture, and while his opinions are typically wrong, he does have a variety of novel hats that are worth tuning in for. Zack, welcome to the Ag Tribes Report.
Oh, I knew that commie stuff was coming. Bring it on, brother. Let's go.
So what have you been paying attention to? Looks like you are in a tractor right now.
Yeah, I've been paying attention to planting corn for the last 4 days straight, and haven't had any air conditioning in my tractor, so I'm a little bit hot and smelly and a little dehydrated. But yeah, we should get finished up here tomorrow if things go well. And then I'm focusing on moving on to the stock cropper plots, all the experiments. I usually plant those last when I can focus and have time. That's where I'm going to probably do that over the weekend and early next week. So other than that, focused on weather, focused on the trade war, focused on markets. What's going to happen is this dry weather cycle that is in place now. Is it going to carry on this summer? How am I going to market my grain? Those are some of the things I'm thinking about.
Out of all the things that you said, the thing that caught my ear is that you're bitching and moaning about not having air conditioning in your tractor. That's pretty tough for a first world farmer, huh?
Oh yeah, it's a huge first world. I would be better to be cabless today, actually, but the old tractors, you could actually open the windows. These damn things are like glass saunas, and so you just bake in here. So I got to open my door in the right direction so I don't fill with dust. But I did all of it when I was a kid. I did a lot of cabless stuff, so I've been there and done that.
Yeah, when I do these legacy interviews, you hear all these people, and I know I can every single time get a guy to laugh if I'm like, well, you had a cab you sat in, right? And then they all laugh and talk about, no, we were out in the hot sun in my first tractor.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
All right. Well, tonight on the Ag Tribes Report, we're going to examine the new U.S.-UK trade deal eliminating tariffs on American beef. While navigating the UK's strict food standards, we're going to discuss Dr. Casey Means' controversial Surgeon General nomination and her stance against glyphosate. Plus, we'll explore the farming community's reaction to the podcast I just released on AI, and I wanted to get some of Zack's thoughts on it. We're also going to explore the Bitcoin land price report. We'll hear Zack's take on the Peter Thiel paradox, and we'll ask him for a new worthy adversary, and we're going to do that all live in just 30 minutes. So let's get started. Headline 1, the U.S. strikes a deal with the U.K. American beef exports win big, but at what cost? Today, the U.S. and U.K. finalized a trade deal cutting U.K. tariffs on U.S. beef from 12% all the way down to 0 for products meeting U.K. standards. These standards prohibit hormone-treated beef and chlorinated chicken, ensuring U.S. exports align with U.K.'s strict food policy and animal welfare regulations. This agreement significantly expands access to the U.K.'s $92 billion agricultural import market, whereas we used to only import wine and nuts. Now American beef producers can compete more effectively. However, this is all going on while the U.S. herd is at its lowest level in 73 years. Increased export demand could strain domestic supply, sending prices even higher. So while it's being celebrated as a win for beef, those that raise cattle, I'm not so sure that's true for the American consumer. Zach, this is the first trade deal announced with a major economy. Is the shift what farmers were hoping for after taking a huge beating on commodity prices and input costs?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good first step. I mean, I'm not a Trump guy. I think his approach with blowing shit up with all this trade stuff is dangerous. But I'm encouraged, and I will give him an attaboy for at least getting something done here that seems to be positive, at least on its face. I didn't have a lot of time going to get all the details going back and forth across the field, but it seems like it was a good give and take where some of the things that are important to the UK, like food safety, issues that we're going to talk more about later on here, they got some of that, and we got access to sell more stuff. Now, I'm not a beef guy, so I'm not going to pretend to. I can't say anything intelligent to what the reaction is. I'm sure prices are going to go up for U.S. consumers. I don't eat beef, so it's not a problem for me. I only eat the stuff I grow, which is pork and chicken. The interesting thing, with all this stuff is going to see if deals are going to continue to be made where everybody gives a little bit, or if we get nothing, or if we get a lot. But it's a good first step, I guess. We've been waiting for it for a while to see if something meaningful was going to happen. So.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what my beliefs on tariffs. They're good for getting rid of other people's tariffs, and that's exactly what happened. I mean, the UK, they got us to bring down the 25% tariff we had on cars and steel. And not only did they do the agricultural imports, which is a big deal, it's also including not just beef, but ethanol. But they're also eliminating the 2% digital services tax on American tech companies. So that's going to be money just right back in the pocket of American companies because they're not paying a senseless digital services tax.
Yeah, 100%. I hope more of it comes. Like I said, I'm not a big Trump guy, but he's the president, and I want America to do well. And if this is part of that, then game on.
I do think it's interesting. We're counting this as a big win with beef prices or with beef. But I mean, we are in for some very serious price hikes when it comes to beef. The herd is as low as it's ever been. There's not heifers being returned into the herd. Like, I think this is great for cattle farmers. They've got to be singing and dancing right now, and they've endured a long time. But this is going to actually impact U.S. consumers for sure.
Yeah, 100%, and it may turn people to other sources like what I eat, pork and chicken, because they are substantially cheaper. And I still prefer a really good pork chop to a steak. I know that makes me a communist, but that's who I am. So.
All right, moving on to headline number 2. Trump taps glyphosate critic as Surgeon General. The ag world braces for impact. Yesterday, President Trump nominated Dr. Casey Means, a 37-year-old functional medicine advocate, as U.S. Surgeon General to lead public health services through the Office of the Surgeon General. This means a Stanford-trained MD left a surgical residency to co-found Levels, a metabolic health company, and co-authored Good Energy, which criticizes conventional medicine. She's a vocal critic against glyphosate, stating it's probably carcinogenic per the WHO, and linking its 19 billion pounds of use to obesity and cancer. Let's take a listen to what Casey Means has said when she was on her book tour that relates to agriculture.
That 82% of independently funded studies show harm from processed food, while 93% of industry-sponsored studies reflect no harm. In medical school, I didn't learn that 95% of the people who created the recent USDA food guidelines for America had significant conflicts of interest with the food industry. I did not learn that 1 billion pounds of synthetic pesticides are being sprayed on our food every single year. 99% of the farmland in the United States is sprayed with synthetic pesticides, many from China and Germany. And these invisible, tasteless chemicals are strongly linked to autism, ADHD, sex hormone disruption, thyroid disease, sperm dysfunction, Alzheimer's, dementia, birth defects, cancer, obesity, liver dysfunction, female infertility, and more, all by hurting our metabolic health.
So she didn't talk directly about glyphosate in that particular one, but Zach, what do you think when you hear her talking about the chemicals being used to raise crops?
You know, it appeals to a lot of people because when you use the word chemical, it's scary, right? And you see the airplane images, crop dusting, and sprayers going across the field, and I get all that stuff. I'm conflicted on this because, you know, I'm in this regen ag space, but I come at it from, I think, probably a more nuanced perspective from my background, you know, in big ag for the last 20 years. And you know, I think it's easy to talk big things about, well, we're just going to get rid of all this stuff. Well, what is the off-road? How do you get from, you know, how we farm today to this alternative future where we're not going to use chemicals to produce any type of to produce food? It's a huge lift, and the devil is in the details. It's one of the frustrations I've had with developing stock cropper. Stock cropper is a great concept; it works, but scaling it, that is the challenge. How do you get all the other things that have to take place to completely reinvent a food system? And am I convinced personally that glyphosate, you know, that what you said there about it's, you know, it causes cancer and obesity? Well, I'm not obese. I've sprayed it for 25 years. I just sprayed it the other day. I don't have cancer. Is that anecdotal? Yes, but there's a lot of people in these circles. You know, I should say this, you know, there's a single study that was done, I think, in 2015 where it was probably carcinogenic. But, you know, there's debate on the data that was used, the dosing that they used on the lab rats or the mice or whatever that was in the thing. Wasn't anything close to what the exposure level that we have in humans. I'm not trying to be a shill for big ag. I'm trying to live in reality. And like when I look at the practices I use on my farm, I talked about in my video last week, you know, cover crops are something that I think are a really, really important practice that could be used at scale, but only, you know, really with the help of glyphosate, because you have to have a way to kill it. And glyphosate is the most effective piece to do. And I think the ancillary benefits that the cover crops produce outweigh, in my opinion, at least from what I've seen right now, you know, the damage that glyphosate may cause. It sounds like a scary word. It came from Monsanto. So does it have to be bad? You know, I don't know. I'm not convinced on it. And so I think the thing I worry about, I agree with a lot of this stuff with RFK and with what she's saying about the things we need to do with health and how we need to change agriculture. But if we're going to throw everything out with the bathwater and just call everything bad and not, you know, be nuanced or careful on that, it's not realistic with, you know, going from A to B with what they're trying to propose.
Yeah, I mean, so I had to even look up. I didn't know what the Surgeon General does. Now, they don't have direct control over agriculture. That's handled by the USDA and the FDA, but they are kind of the head of public health. So there's very limited in there, like, what is it that they get to do or what do they have control over? But they are going to be controlling the dialogue. And when you see things like her tweet that we have posted here, 19 billion pounds of glyphosate sprayed, talking about 80,000 synthetic toxins in the food, the water. You know, people are looking for what's going on here, what's wrong with our food, but we have to be based on some kind of a system. You know, we have to have like how are we making these decisions? And I would say the vast majority of the studies that are out there that are relating to public health would say that glyphosate is safe, but I'm not opposed to somebody coming in and stirring things up and trying to find, hey, maybe these were put together in some negative way. Well, seems like she's like a little less than professional about it, all of it, though.
Yeah, I mean, believe me, like you and I both know the money that the big corporations that we both used to work for have at their disposal, you know, and what they can squash. And so if somebody came forward with meaningful work that wasn't biased by something else, I would. You know, if it proved that was the case, I'd stop using it 100%, or I'd find an alternative. You know, but I'm not going to change things that I can see that are helping other things on the farm be better without real evidence.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the ways that I talk about it is I say, you know, I use glyphosate on the bricks and on the driveway that my daughters play on, and that's the level of confidence that I have on it. Now, I'm not going out and spraying them with it. I'm being careful about it. But that's the confidence that I have in glyphosate. All right, moving on to story number 3. Ag community reacts to advanced AI demonstration. This Tuesday, I published a podcast demonstrating how advanced AI is taking in a great deal and how much it's changed. I'm talking about how I use it in my own business And I have to say, the reaction from all of my listeners was bigger than anything I've ever put out. I've continued to get texts and emails over and over about people saying, I did not know it was this far along. I've started using it. And it was really incredible. I've just never felt anything like this before. I got videos of an old tractor that got started from advice from Grok, spreadsheets outlining cropping decisions made over the last 20 years that had never been compiled before, and a readout of soil sample it had exceptional detail. So, I mean, it was huge, and you and I had a chance to talk about this. What was your reaction? What were your thoughts on the AI podcast?
I've been like interested at a distance, but I kind of thought this is probably a few years from being a real deal. But I started using Grok personally probably about a month or two ago, and have been using it more and more. And every day I get a little bit more blown away. And watching that podcast with an AI interviewing you and interacting like fairly normally, like really, really close, it blew my mind. And I sent the video to my wife. I sent it to my daughters. I said, you need to watch this because this is coming, and I sent it to my wife. It's like, how are you going to react in your job, to this? I sent it to my daughters that are in college. Like, how are you going to react in the fields? Like, you need to start thinking about this now, because it is going to be here way faster and way sooner than what we think, and honestly, when I had this problem with this tractor, with the air conditioning, I asked Grok last night, my God, the level of detail that it had for a versatile 310 2016 tractor. I mean, it was unreal. It was probably better than calling the shop, the level of detail that I got out of it. So,
yeah, I mean, I think about its uses, the number of, like if you ever had a crop chemistry problem, right? Like what's the mix ratio? How does this go together? These are the wind speeds. It is going to completely blow away what we used to have to call up a specialist for.
Well, that was me. And that was one of the reasons I quit, is because I thought this day was coming. I just didn't think it would be this fast. I thought it would be when I was 50 or 55, but I'm 46 and it's here now. Like agronomy work, I was thinking about all the things within ag that this could be better. It's 24/7 touch of a button, and you get probably better expertise than you would actually calling somebody anymore. So this is, if people aren't paying attention, if you haven't like got one of these services, on your phone to start playing with it, you better start if you don't want to get left behind. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the way that I did that podcast, because I've been thinking about it for a long time. Anytime I get into something, I always just want to talk about it on the podcast, because then all my friends can talk about it and we just have to do it once. But I really wanted to think about, how do we get past the dumb argument that people normally have when they're like, nope, it's not going to take my job. And that's not my point. My point was, this is going to pervade everyone's work. It is going to impact everybody. It doesn't matter if you're J.R. Burdick and you're a raw dairy milk farmer. Even if you were hand milking those cows, if your competitor is using them to figure out how to fix the line issue, to arrange deliveries more frequently or better, all of the things that AI is going to do, whether or not it actually picks up a wrench and does the work for you, is immaterial. What it is it's going to be a lever for the mind, and the first people that get to it are the ones that get the longest lever.
Yeah, it is the new age crescent wrench for sure.
What do you think adoption will be like in agriculture?
Ag usually drags with stuff like this, but I think more people are awake. I've had more conversations in the last few weeks about it with folks, and but it'll come for every industry. And I think when farmers figure out how to leverage it, it will be a really big deal from an independence. There's a lot of farmers that subscribe to things or pay for services, and man, it makes a subscription to Grok or Claude or the upscale Chat GPTs look pretty damn cheap for what people pay to get expertise that you can have for almost nothing now.
Yeah, without question, the $30 I pay for Grok and the $20 I pay for Claude, like $50, the amount of help it's given me is way more than whatever I would have done for $50, what I could have paid somebody for.
Now,
all right.
I want to say one thing. Will it replace people wanting to interact with people? I think there's a lot of folks in agriculture that still like that piece, but I think it's going to challenge that, quite a little. So.
Well, that's going to do it for the headlines today. If you have headlines, you can always send them over to me at Vance Crowe on X, or you can send it to me, Vance at Legacy Interviews. Turning now to the Bitcoin land price report. First, let's play this quick video as Bitcoin crossed $100,000 again today. Anyway, the reason I am so elated with this is because back in February, we were talking about Bitcoin all the time. It's up at like 106. People are buying, and the way I know that they're buying is because they're using the River link, and then Bitcoin's price plummets. And so what I got to do was to baptize all the new Bitcoin hodlers in the world of being underwater for a little while. But it's good. It is now back up over 100,000. In fact, as of press time, it was sitting at $103,500, which is 7.1% up from last week's price of $96,000. So, Zach, the last time you were on, back in August of 2024, we discussed land prices in your area. At that time, you mentioned that Winnebago County, the average land was selling for around $12,800 per acre. So when we translated that into Bitcoin back then, with Bitcoin trading at $58,452, that meant an acre of land in Winnebago County cost about 0.22 Bitcoin per acre. Fast forward to today, Bitcoin at 103,000, that same acre would now cost approximately 0.12 Bitcoin. And in other words, last August, one Bitcoin would have bought you 4.5 acres, and now it would buy you 8.1 acres of farmland in Winnebago County. What do you think, Zach? Is that a fair assessment of the land values in Winnebago County?
Yeah, I would say we're probably haven't changed a lot from that. There was a poorer piece that sold a couple miles from where I'm sitting a few weeks ago for like 8,300. But you know, I stand by what I said last August. I'd rather, as a farmer, I'd rather own Bitcoin right now than land. I see everything that's happening with the new policies and the new administration, and the amount of people that are talking about it that I never thought would have. When I started getting interested through you and your influence, you know, that you've had on a lot of folks in this space, you know, a few years ago, like, it feels like something is happening, and this thing is going to. I mean, there's so much that has changed from when I got in. When I got in was just the hint of the ETFs were maybe coming, and there's so many things that have happened since then. It almost doesn't seem like the price is high enough to really reflect, you know, all the magnitude of all the things from a you know, a policy standpoint that are getting set up right now. So.
Yeah, I mean, I am exactly with you. The amount of interest that's gone into Bitcoin, it just continues to mount. And it was mounting when Bitcoin was down in the 70,000 range. Like, I'm getting requests for people, hey, can I come by your office? Can you sit down and show this to me? Hey, I want to get a Trezor wallet. I bought some Bitcoin for my kids. I want to get it off an exchange. And this is from some down home farmers. This is not like people just outside the city. These are people that are deeply enmeshed in the culture. And as I watch it go spread through agriculture, I think this is a great thing. Yeah.
And, you know, and I mean, for me right now, there's a lot of threats, you know, to the price of land right now. I mean, you get this trade war. I mean, it's great that they had the win today, but that's not guaranteed. And, you know, depending on what happens with China, you know, potentially next week, you know, there's talks that's going to get released. If it goes the wrong way, you know, it could, I mean, it could be Bitcoin could be a really, really nice hedge, you know, for land going down. If that potentially happens, I'm kind of hoping on that because I'm planning on buying some land here, you know, probably in the next 10 years. And I'm using, you know, Bitcoin hopefully as a tool to, you know, make that happen.
Well, I love to hear you say that. If you're interested in getting Bitcoin, I will include the link to River, which is the site that I actually buy my Bitcoin from when I buy it on an exchange and then hold it. If you buy it using our link, you will be supporting the show. And I can tell you it's a wonderful thing. And you will be joining a growing community of agriculture that is getting into Bitcoin. So I'll include that at the show notes after the show. Now heading on to the Peter Thiel paradox. Now Zack has his weekly show. He puts out mostly on Saturday. Sometimes, hangovers and things get in the way. You get it out on Sunday. But he's always throwing out some Peter Thiel paradoxes there. So I'm interested to see, are you pulling out the stops here, Zack? What do you got for us?
Yeah,
what is one thing that you believe that nobody else agrees with you on?
I think there's other people that agree with me on, but like within the space I'm in, I don't know how many do. I think there's a big war against public education right now. It's been going on for the last probably 10 years. It's been mounting, and I think people are blaming. They want to blame the school systems, and I think that's that public schools are bad and we need to homeschool and privatize everything. That's the big thing here in Iowa. For me, I think that's a bunch of bullshit. I think, public schools have been a great thing throughout history. And really the issue we've had since my generation went through high school is we've had two generations of failed parents. And that is the millennial and Gen X have sucked at parenting and dealing with the challenges with technology. And it's caused a whole host of issues that these poor educators and administrators have to deal with. Schools have become glorified daycares. And they get thrown this shit mess of people not being parents. People are tuned out. They're on their phones. They're not tuned into being parents. They don't teach their kids how to be accountable. I have strong opinions about this because I went through this. I've got two kids in college now, and I raised them. And I was the black sheep because I raised my kids like my folks raised me. And that wasn't in vogue. And they told me that all the time, Dad, you're the only one, that does things this way. And I think trying to push things into smaller niches where it's more not challenged by outside thought. And, that's the great thing about public schools. Everybody comes and you have rich kids to poor kids and, all sorts of, races and, all sorts of backgrounds that come together. And that diversity of thought, I think, is really important. Being able for critical thinking skills to see people from other perspectives, especially with AI coming. That's one of the things I wanted to hit on. With AI, the thing that you and I talked about is how are we going to teach kids to think critically enough to use this as a tool effectively and not be eaten by it. That's one of my big things. And so parenting in the last two generations has sucked. It gets, and to me, it's the reason why, that the public education system, one of the reasons I should say, has really had challenges over the last, 5 to 10 years.
Well, I mean, you're coming out swinging there because I intuitively don't agree with you on this. I think that education is inherently, the public education is inherently communism, right? We force everyone to pay into it. It is a completely subsidized system. It's very, very difficult to work with teachers to push out the bad ones and to reward the good ones. And I think that it is also a way to push a lot of propaganda onto young people that is state enforced. No matter who it is, the government's the one that's in control of the curriculum. And I think that's been increasing, and they've taken more and more control away from school boards. So I don't agree with you at all.
Time. I hear that shit all the time from people. And you know what my dad always said? I've said this to you before. If schools were effective at what they did, you'd have reason to be concerned. 90% of education starts at home, and you have the opportunity. And I know you're doing this. I'm not, coming at you personally, but I think so many people don't put the time in to invest in their own kids, and that leads to these issues, And then we blame it on the government, or we blame it on the teachers, or we blame it on woke ideology. I asked my daughters, kind of preparing for this. I sent them a text, and I didn't bait them, tell them the context. I said, how often in your education, both in high school and now at a 4-year public university, have you had the feeling of some sort of political bias be put forth? And I got a response. One time in high school, I had a teacher that maybe got out of line on that, but that was it.
Yeah, but a fish that's in water has no idea that it's even in water. I mean, that's why I can tell you the perfect example of propaganda. The most perfect example is economics, right? How many people right now believe in Keynesian economics? The government needs to have 2.5% inflation. The Fed is the one that should be able to control how much money we put into the system. Economics is one of the core things that you need to teach a young person, and we are teaching all of our kids the worst economics that you possibly can, so that way the government can continue to print money and not have to tax their citizens while stealing away all their value.
Okay. You're wrong.
All right. Well, I will give you
score?
I will give you a solid 8-9 on that one. This is a good one because I totally don't agree with it.
No, you're wrong. You'll figure it out when your kids get older.
Well, all right. Now moving on to your worthy adversary. Who is one person that you respect but completely disagree with?
This was a tough one. I don't know. This probably isn't going to be very good because I don't know. This is just me kind of phoning it in. I would say Elon Musk. I don't get what Elon has done, with his positioning with DOGE. I think DOGE, at least on its face right now, they were promising $2 trillion of savings, and right now it's like 150 billion for sure. I like the spirit of DOGE, but it feels like to me the woke mind virus got him, and the fact that he lost his son, I guess, that turned transgender. And in fact, that Biden didn't invite him to the EV summit. There's a couple things I think that broke him, and it's too bad because I do think he's one of the most important people of our time. I don't think he deserves the level of hate. I don't think people should be burning Teslas, but I don't know. I don't know what happened for him. I hope he recovers because I think he's really, really important, and he does deserve people's respect despite the political decisions that he's made. And I'm gonna go test drive a Tesla on Saturday, and for being a leftist communist, put that shit in your and beat it. So
that's a good one. I think that it's particularly in ag, like people went from not liking Elon Musk to all of a sudden he became a big hero, and then just accepting everything he was doing. So that's a good one.
Good.
All right. So, Zach, you said you're going to finish up planting. What's going on with stock cropper this year?
Yeah, excuse me. So stock cropper this year is going to look a little bit different. I've moved all my barns out remotely. So we've got them right now at multiple locations. One at Precision Planting, one at the Fields of Cincinnati, east of Dubuque, Iowa, and then one will be at Jason Mock's farm out in Gaston, Indiana, which I will be going to his field day. I want to promote that tonight, June 21st, in partnership with Acres USA. I'll be there. One of our cluster clucks will be there. A whole host of other just really, really awesome stuff in the regen and farm weird space. So we'll be focusing on that. I'll have my own experiments that I'll be doing on the farm here in Iowa. I'm not going to have a field day this year. I'm choosing to go around and support other people's field days to try to get out and around and move the barns to other locations, because we've done it for 5 years here in one spot, and I want to try to spread that way with the resources that I have. And I'm going to keep putting out content every Saturday morning or Sunday or whatever I think will piss Vance off if I don't do it when I say I'm going to do it. So.
And if people wanted to learn more about the stock cropper, your stock cropper system, where could they go?
Yeah, so they can go to my website, thestockcropper.com. We've got pictures and videos that kind of explain, the system that we came up with back in 2020, and we continue to try to prove out and improve ag with every day.
Well, Zach, Mother's Day is just a few short days away, and I've been asking guests on the spot, like, what is something that your mom said many years ago while raising you that sticks with you today? Does anything come to mind?
I have a lot more sayings from my dad, probably. But my mom has been, she's been a rock, for our family, through, and I think for a lot of farm families, moms are, moms are pretty important. So if she's watching this, I hope she knows I love her. I appreciate everything she's done for me.
Well, she has raised quite a family and one of my best friends. So I'm glad to see you saying something kind about her. If you're interested in doing a kindness for your mother and want to get her stories recorded and let her know that you care about making sure that future generations know about the childhood she had, where she came from, what she went through, and how she raised you.
Oh,
Then
yeah,
go
and
to
she was a public school teacher and a damn good one.
oh. Then go to legacyinterviews.com to find out more. All right, that's going to do it. I am so glad you were able to show up for me to do this, Zach. I know it's the middle of planting. You stopped the planter to make it happen, but it's cool to do the Ag Tribes Report from here. So we'll be back next week, and as always, feel free to disagree.